but it's a lot of money. You want to go for it. And I tell myself, no. It sounds really temptation. Sounds really good, but I gotta be focused. It's really about the focus, and those 3 questions really help me to get by every day.
Hey everyone, I'm Myles, the research lead at Denzity, and join me where today I'm going to be sitting down with CEO and co-founder Darren. Hey Darren, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a first for you. Usually you're the one who's asking the questions rather than answering them, but thanks for agreeing to sit down and have me and the team sort of pick your brain on the startup and your startup experience.
I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous because it's the first time I've actually shared my answers instead of asking the questions. And then I finally have a time to really talk about what we believe in, because that's actually why it's so important Denzity has to be here in the world. So thanks for having me, and then it's the first time for you too, eh?
That is true. Usually my role is behind the camera, but it's a refreshing change for both of us. But enough about me, as the episode is about you. You have a history as a serial entrepreneur, starting back in Canada with a string of startups, then working in the fund in Hong Kong, and now you're back to the startup life with your new baby, your new project, Denzity. I was wondering if you could walk us through your own journey with Denzity, the experience, building it up.
For sure. I think a lot of people keep thinking that we did a lot of videos, it's all we do, but there's a lot of things behind the scene that we're preparing to launch very soon. So let's start talking about my journey, about why Denzity is so important to be here. And then my journey, obviously, to create Denzity. So Denzity's vision is to make real estate accessible to all. Now, that sounds like a very simple statement, but there's a lot of reason behind that. It really comes from the experience that when I start working in a real estate fund, my job before is to help 10 families to invest overseas, real estates, like so buildings, right? So I used to help them from the whole process, from finding out what is the best investment for them around the world, to think about how to do due diligence, to think about how to investigate what if this investment is good or not, purchase the whole thing, and then manage it, operate it, and then sell it and afterward. So during this whole process, we realized that there are many traps and tricks that real estate investors must stumble upon and don't even know they have these problems or troubles until years afterward. And then a lot of people keep thinking that, okay, I can learn things from online. So even though I'm not working in the real estate field, I can become a professional. Then once you're realizing that, you know that the online ecosystem is terrible for real estate.
It's a very scattered online ecosystem, isn't it?
Exactly, and real estate is not a simple like asset class to learn about the investment perspective, right? And a lot of people I know is that there are years of their savings, or because they got cheated, they got scammed, they lost their savings. And savings represents a lot of things, right? Like let's say for example, some people might save 3 to 5 years and thinking that okay, let's put that into real estate investment, and that will become my future retirement funds or my kids' education's fund, hopes and dreams. It's really about that. And they lost them, and then family collapsed or not as happy as before. They lost their wealth. So to me, it's a very important mission to have. Now, I realize is that the best way is really to how I bring the knowledge I've learned, the insights I've learned as well from the professional real estate world, and bring it to online, and bring a lot of professional great experts, their knowledge and insight to the online world to build the online ecosystem. And through this whole journey, I realized is that in order for them to go online as well, we need to provide a solution for them to generate leads. So Denzity is really about 2 different solutions. One side is to help investor to provide them an online platform to learn about real estate information, the best real estate information out there. And at the same time is that we provide a lead generation solutions for real estate companies to really capture leads and build brands. And that's how Denzity came about. So it's not only videos.
Yeah, well, that's definitely an ambitious mission. It's a big plan, a big vision for the future of real estate, how it operates. But, for people who are watching out there, how does it actually work? It's one thing to talk about lead generation or moving real estate online, but then how do you actually do that? Because again, it's a big mission, isn't it?
So this is actually a very interesting question, because a lot of people don't realize is that traditionally, real estate companies is heavily reliant on the conventional way to find customers, right? So for example, they would be going to networking events, and then, or they find referrals from professionals. They don't really need to rely on online methods to find customers. And now, obviously, we're in the pandemic mode still, hopefully getting out soon, fingers crossed.
Hopefully.
And then the bar has changed so much, and it's from the investor side. Now, during the whole process for the past couple of years, the real estate adopts technology a lot faster paced, and investors as well. So for example, there are three main things that investors have changed in behavior when it comes to real estate investments. Number one, they are heavily reliant on online information to learn about real estate investment now. Two is that they actually expect a lot more engaging information and ways to absorb information when it comes to real estate investment. Lastly is that they really care about if a professional or a company have a proper digital presence to really do some due diligence before they even say, okay, maybe I'm interested to find you to talk about, am I want to buy this investment or not? So all this combined together, real estate companies now have different channels to go online. But a lot of real estate companies before is that, okay, let's make a website, an online pamphlets, and somehow people will find them. Investor will be like, okay, I have a nice pamphlet online. This is Darren, this is Myles, this is ABC, and then you can invest in Hong Kong real estate, Malaysia real estate, a few liners, and then somehow you go to find you. So now it's obviously not true. Online marketing is very sophisticated, and then a lot of real estate companies don't have the manpower at the moment to transition so fast, and they cannot capture the opportunities right now. So we realize is that by having our products that will create a new channel for customers, not only that we can help them to communicate the brand value, and also to help them to uphold their promises, we can help them to really to deliver the right content and offering of the customers to the right customers that are asking for that mandate. And lastly is to understand the online performance of how they're doing online to make better decisions on for their content creation, their offerings, and that is what real estate companies very need. So we emphasize a lot about doing all that and how do we give the solutions that real estate companies really have that, and which is none in the moment in the whole market. So Denzity for us, we're really about providing real estate companies a lead generation solution, the best for real estate companies out there, that how they can really create the whole presence, and then they can get a lot of listings online to let people to really come to them and then say, I'm interested in this project. So think about Shopify for real estate, and then provide a way whereby they can capture leads very fast paced, and then at the same time as that, obviously give a lot of clients a lot of different options to understand what's the best for them.
So if I can distill it down to two main points, the first one, the one that you just mentioned, is this sort of sales funnel that it's one of your weapons in an online lead generation system, the SaaS solution, and that's one pillar, while the other is kind of creating this information ecosystem for interested investors who want reliable information. So between sort of these two main pillars of the business, you really want to help companies move from a passive to more active presence. You want to help companies adapt. And speaking of adaptation as well to these different trends, to people moving online, how should startups themselves adapt? What would you say are your main key takeaways for someone who is founding their own startup, wants to find their own startup? What would be your insights for them?
I think that's a great question, because a lot of founders have different methods and principles they think about how they can really build their business, startups. And then I think as a startup founder, you're kind of using your belief system to build what the best way for you to let people to use your product and get on that. So there are a few principles that I stand by, and then I strongly believe in them. Number one is to focus. Focus is a very important thing, because a lot of time is that you only have a finite resources and time. And then I found is that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're corporate trained, they're trying to do so many different things. And then because the corporate, your company, you're trained to think that you want to capture so many opportunities. So your message is going to be very high level, doesn't say anything really. It's a very high level umbrella. The things you do, you try to do so many different things, you're all over the place. And a lot of time is that you lost your own focus. And then I think as a founder, especially when there's so many startups, great startups out there, there's so many great businesses out there competing with you, you can be ultimate focus, very focused, the way you learn, the way you think, the way you do. And there's an art behind it, is that, okay, can you say 1-2 lines that people really know what you're doing? Can you think that you're so focused on learning and listening that you exactly understand your customers that well, understand the world that well that you think? And when you do something, can you be so focused that you use all your resources to make sure a couple of things works out? So that's the first most important thing, focus. I can go hours about that. It's something that it took me years to really understand that, as my mentor who taught me that. And then I can tell you more, but let's go to the other points.
Perhaps in another episode, we can go all in about that.
Oh, we need a couple of series of episodes on that. And number two is this, right? Is that how do you get skin in the game and get feedback ASAP? Because like a lot of times, right? I think I will speak on something that I learned before, is that in order for a startup, you need to learn really, really fast. And there's always a lot of things that you think on paper sounds very good business plan, but would never work. And a lot of people, I think, is that I met a lot of entrepreneurs that they think way too much. They want to perfect it. So, and they think that user wants certain things, but they don't understand users. A user will only tell you what they really want if they have skin in the game as well. That means they pay for it, or they say, okay, I promise you I'll keep using a certain amount of time to really get feedback. And then especially if you're working with like corporate business, like what real estate tech startup usually do, like mine, is that they take years to even tell you, okay, fine, let's come on board, right? And you have a finite of resource and time that you have on your startups too, right? So I would say is this, right? For skin the game, get feedback, and build a track record. Is that very fast way. How can you get your foot into a business, give them a very good sweetheart deal they can say no to, and then really be blunt to find the stakeholders, to really tell you exactly what they think, and tell you how the system works, and give you a way to understand how you build your product and get as soon as possible and find more customers and keep building towards that. The feedback loop is your blood, your lifeblood, and is your breath and your lifeline for a startup. Second point. Third point is that I realize is that a lot of times startups are too optimistic about, they think that, okay, if I have this one business online, I already win. Or be like, okay, if I have this button here, people will press on it. Too optimistic. And I think that you're not honest about what you really are and what you can do and what you should know about. So I feel is that a lot of times the startups should really be disciplined about learning what they don't know and know what their strength is. For example, right? I might not be the best when it comes to, let's say, video taking, right? So I have my brother, Brian, to really help me on video creation. And then but for me, I understand real estate, so I can work with him that way. I'm not a programmer, so I work with having one of the best CTO in Hong Kong to be my programmer and really build a product, and I don't learn from coding from scratch, right? And then, so I understand myself really well on that regard. And there are a lot of things that I never tried before. For example, let's say, if I want to, let's say, build a business from 0 to 100,000 revenue, for example. Maybe I'm not there yet. So at least I know what it takes to get there, to put that in my mind. So when I get there, I know what it takes to get from 100,000 to 1 million to 10 million, 100 million. There are a lot of things you will not know, but you figure it out by then. But having that in your mind is very important. So be honest about what you can do, what you cannot do, and what you need to become years from now or months from now is very important.
Mm-hmm. So actually, if I may, knowing your strengths is just as important as actually knowing your weaknesses and what you can improve on, and realizing that some things you just shouldn't bother with, or that you should offload to others.
Or even that actually go back to the first 2 points too, right? Focus to focus. You don't know how to focus on what you're good at. How can you really have a domain that company was like, okay, there are 1,000 companies out there, but you know what, Darren, your Denzity is the best for me. That's why I can do it with you, work with you, and pay for you. I'll put money on you, right? That's not focus. And back to it is that if you don't have skin in the game and even have feedback loop to learn that, you will not be good at something. And then, so be honest about what you can do. That's very important, right? So it's not about startup, obviously. It's about even life, right? And then as a company, you have one focus. And there's 2 more points I think is very important as well, right? For example, I think a lot of founders really don't understand you get burned out easily. I get burned out easily. It's because you need to think about the big picture and execute at the same time. So founders are very unique because usually a big company, there's thinkers and there are doers. Let's say, for example, the thinkers would be the chief of executives of like a C-suite strategy guy, the head of partnership, the head of sales and so on. They're the one who come up with big ideas to think about, okay, I have years of experience and then I know the hacks and tricks to get things done, but they are focused on thinking. And the doers in the front line really do the programmers, the people who actually sales in the front line and so on. Founders, you gotta be both, right? You gotta go back and forth. And so I like to use an analogy like magnifying glass, is that you need to know when you should zoom out to be a thinker and zoom in to be a doer, right? Because if you don't know where you're going, you can do 1,000 things, but you don't know where you're going, so you're all over the place and you never get things done, which go back to my first 4 points. And at the same time, it's that, but however, if you're too, big picture, you can't do anything. So you're only a thinker without doing anything. So when you do the magnify class is that you should plan out when you should zoom out, when you should zoom in. Zoom out, zoom in from big pictures like, hey, 3 to 6 months, what I need to become. And if you identify that is your goal, let's get back to day 1, day 2, day 3, 1 week from now and how you do it. So that's the magnify class analogy, is that the less you go back and forth, the less burnout you will become, and then you'll be more careful and methodical when it comes to how you build your startup. And last thing, it's not the least important, it's still all important in my perspective, is really to empathize companies and peoples and so on. How can you become a good founder if you don't even know why someone will work with you? How would you be a good founder if you don't understand users' pain points? Now, for example, previously you asked me the question about understanding real estate companies. And a lot of people will be like, oh, real estate companies are terrible. You don't welcome new ideas. It's not, it's really about your system is very streamlined and very optimized, right? And for me, so for example, let's say if I am hiring someone or having in my team, like I'm not a corporate, big banks or development firm that I have a finite resource. So if I don't understand what type of employees or teammates or clients I should have, why should I even in this game? Because I don't understand what they need and how can I attract talents and the right customers to really understand what they need to be part of Denzity's ecosystem. So I think everything I've said so far, and there's so many different lessons I've learned, to be honest. Like there are a lot of things that I'm still learning, to be honest. And then I feel these are the 5 most important things the startup founder needs to have embed in the genetic to really think about, okay, this 5 things is something that I stick in your mind, and I'm making sure I constantly remind myself, those are the 5 principles I need to have to build a startup.
So there's a lot of things to marinate on. There's so many different things to consider that my head is almost hurting. But if you could sort of distill these down into questions that a founder should ask themselves, because I constantly feel that, people don't ask themselves enough questions.
Yeah.
And what are the ones that you ask yourself and which would say that others should as well?
Yeah, I think, there are so many questions you ask yourself every single day, but the most important one that I tend to have every morning when I wake up, and then when I get ready back to work mode, there are a few questions, right? 1, what are something that I have to do before I move on to different tasks? And it's something that obviously everyone's like, yeah, no crap. Like you gotta know this kind of stuff, but because for startups, there's so many things you gotta do every single day, and every single thing, it seems important. But then there's always that important focus things you gotta do before you move on to small things. So priority of how you prioritize your priority. That sounds paradoxical, but that's true. Two is that, am I really being honest about things that I don't know? Because there's so many things you gotta do. So there's some work that you're just half-assing. You're not doing the best work you can do, but based on their priority, so it's fine. But then is there something that I need to revisit again? And am I honest about if, for example, hey, my financial okay or not? Am I really doing the best product or not? Or something that I'm missing? What are the tasks missing? So really understand is that there's something that really honest to myself, what I need to do to really to understand where I am. Last thing is really about, hey, am I really able to, am I going the right direction? Because as I said before, startup, different things you juggle with, different direction you can go. And then every morning I wake up and said, am I really going the way I want to be? And am I doing the right way? Because there are a lot of things to divert you. There's a lot of temptation out there. You will say, hey, Darren, why just not do a startup? Let's do something on the side, Or say, hey, Darren, just some a client come to you that maybe is not what you want to focus on, but it's a lot of money. You want to go for it. And I tell myself, no. It sounds really temptation, sounds really good, but I gotta be focused. It's really about the focus, and those three questions really help me to get by every day.
So these really can help sort of structure your life. First, day to day, that you prioritize your priority. I like that. You can almost put that on a shirt. And then the other two are a bit more meta, more big picture, the direction, and then, potential weaknesses in your company. And this goes for, startup founder or not, anyone. But going back to your insights and sort of your advice, your suggestions for startup founders, how they can adapt, your recommendations. If we can get a bit more specific to your own industry, which is property technology and startups in the real estate world, you already mentioned how it's a bit more of a traditional industry. So they have a more sort of strict way of doing things. What advice would you give to people who are doing startups much like yourself, so PropTech, real estate companies?
I think that's a great question, because it really goes back to what the misconception about real estate companies. Go back to it is that, most real estate companies don't welcome innovations or new ideas, and then they're not keeping up to trends. Actually, if anything, they're very careful about who to work with all the time to protect their brands and reputation like themselves. Everyone very hold on to it, and then they have a very tight streamline of their work, have a tight and fast-paced schedule to get things done. And then when it comes to about having startups, is that they always welcome, but then they will be asking the question, say, hey, I don't know who you are, what you do, and then I need to make sure my board is okay with you. So when it comes to groupthink and real estate, I think the founders, when it comes to PropTech, it's very different than other industries, that you have to make in a way that your onboarding process is so straightforward, so easy. You would do a lot of work that a lot of real estate companies would not distort their work stream to do it, protect their brand to make sure that they are able to, don't dilute their brands, or simply that, they won't get any risk behind that, and making sure people in the company was vouching for you, say, you know what, Denzity sounds like the best product out there. Right? That I can easily use your product and I get on board really easily and try it out for you. So I think any startup, doesn't matter. Like PropTech startups, obviously, is a very corporate-driven segment. I think is that you have to be very careful about the user experience, how easy you can onboard it, how you do that. Two, real estate people are very pragmatic and careful about who we work with. So is it result-driven or not? Lastly is about, okay, if you are having a PropTech startups, can you really making sure they become testimonial and build a track record? Because real estate companies care a lot about skin in the game and track record. So can you build it as soon as possible? That maybe in this first couple of deals, you have a big discount for them. It takes a lot more time, takes a lot more work, but the long tail is going to justify every single thing. So I think for a PropTech startups, beyond the founder's suggestion that I have, that's a more important thing to think about when it comes to building your own PropTech startup. So
along with all these lessons that the viewer can distill, whether they're a startup leader or not, what are some more resources? What's some content that they can read? Be it articles or books that you would suggest?
I think a lot of people who like to start out like me, we used to learn a lot, and you have to be disciplined about learning. Books for me is the best source because you have so many things you distill in one 300, 400 page. Now, we have a debate before how many books we should recommend. I insist on 5. So 1 for life, 2 for startup, and 2 for thinking. The 1 for life is sapient. It's something that I really think about the life, how I should think about what humans should do and so on. Then the 2 other books for startups is Start With Why, and then The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And then the 2 other books would be Bad Blood, and then I would say Chaos Monkey, because that 2 books is to remind me how to be grounded in the mistakes or things to be aware of when building a startups. And that 5 books is only the tip of the iceberg. I've been talking about so many times about what books I should recommend. I would maybe attach a list of like suggestions from my side, and then people who are just interested to learn what books they want to read, and feel free to use that list.
Yeah, we definitely will. I think we may have done a disservice by limiting you to only 5 titles, but we'll attach Darren's reading list below. And in the meantime, there's a lot more we want to discuss, but let's take a break here and then continue the discussion later about the future of real estate investment.
I need a coffee, so perfect.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching. What do you think of this episode? Please let us know in the comment below, and be sure to hit the subscribe button to keep in touch with us for upcoming videos. But before we go, I want to give a big shout out to Patina Design Lab. They're the one who help us in making our brand, art direction, as well as these videos. They are a strategic design consultancy firm that help businesses with a wide range of design services, from industrial design, branding, graphic design, art direction, content creation, and many more. They are a very talented bunch, and I urge you to check out their website for their work. That's all for today, and see you next time. Cheers.